I'm Phil Best from Optima Technology. You might know us previously as Bill Identity or Optima Solutions. Bill Identity bought Optima probably a year and a half ago now, and what we've been doing in that period is developing our software and solutions so we can into the market position. So what I'm going to talk about today is unlocking your data potential on the journey to net zero. Looking at confident steps in regards to brokers, how they can get accurate data and reliable data from software solutions within the market. So just to set the scene a little bit and looking, so circa 30% of businesses are setting net zero targets, whether that's social conscience, regulatory drivers. So we've only got 30% currently who are looking at net zero adoption. Over half of the large UK companies, about 52% of more 250 employees, are looking at a net zero strategy. And if we're looking globally across this, we've probably got 111 of the world's biggest global emitters, out 167 looking at it. So whether you're working with large, small, SME type customers, there is a dependence on customers looking at net zero and support and areas around it. We know it's gaining traction. I think net zero has been a buzzword for quite a while now, and I think a lot more people are starting to see the benefits of looking at it and support on it. So whether you're a company that's a start of the journey, whether you're midway through, what we're going to look at is how we can support you on that journey in regards to data capture, data accuracy and reliability, and how you can support your customers in regards to going further than just looking at procurement and what you can be supporting on there. So I guess if we look at what the drivers are, so the first one, regulation. Whether it's mandatory disclosures for larger businesses or voluntary for smaller ones, reporting touches a lot of customers now in regards to what they need to be putting in and how they need to be doing it. If you look at supply chain, it's gone probably past just scope 1 and 2 currently, and if you look at that supply chain, a lot of people now are having to report on the scope 3, and again, it's about how you offer that support to your customers to say, what are we looking at, how can we support you? And I was listening to the Systems Link one before, and it was quite interesting that when we mentioned about, have you been asked about carbon reporting and support, there was kind of a, not really, it hasn't really on the radar, but it's definitely something that's kind of coming in the market that we're looking at currently. Reputation, funny one, this one in regards to reputation. I guess again, it depends in regards to how much in the limelight you are as a business and what you're going to be looking at around from there. But again, there is a reputational damage by not having the right accurate data when you're reporting on your emissions or looking at your carbon and the likes of that. So this is a big one. You might have seen a lot in the news about greenwashing and some of the big companies. I think that's been the first fines that have gone into operation recently for companies not reporting on the right carbon. So ESG and investor expectations around this are you have to be having an accurate carbon report, and you've got to be looking at what we can be supporting on from around there. And again, the cost, pretty evident, but the drivers are feeding into ESG, supply chain. Cost plays a big factor in regards to the drivers around it. We said this before, accuracy is our underlying paramount. So there's so many data formats that we'll pick up on and go through, but when you are looking at carbon reporting, when you're looking at ESG, when you're looking at net zero, accuracy is the underlying paramount area of it, and we will touch again in regards to how that feeds into what support you can offer your customers. So I guess what we're looking at in your shoes, it's probably easy for anybody to stand here and go, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, but how do you realistically put it into operation? So we're not the only company who offer bill validation or ESG reporting, but what we are doing is making sure it's automated, accurate, and we can deliver from there. So it's manually intensive, so the reporting that you do and the support that you give to your customers at the minute, If you've got to chase suppliers, if you've got to format spreadsheets, it does feed into that. It's obviously time consuming. So again, we've fed on that before. If you're chasing suppliers, if you're dealing with other formats, all of that feeds in. And then you've got the data gaps. So we know that data, if it's manually done, if it's time consuming, will have gaps. So our whole way we look at this is automating the data for you to actually be able to offer to your customers carbon reporting, ESG support, and the likes of that. So because of what I've been talking about previously, organisations are managing more data than ever. Before I mentioned it, it's just scope 1 and 2, but now within that supply chain they have to offer scope 3 as well. There's different formats, you've got sub-meter, plant waste, data that's feeding in. So again, it becomes a kind of a situation where you've got data coming in from every area. How do you manage that and make sure that the mountain of data that's stored in different areas you can use and actually understand of what's going on for your customers from there. Making sense of the data is vital. We know that on the net zero journey. It's pretty kind of easy to say, right, let's look at it, but where do you start? The main point is a baseline. You've got to have the data in there to be able to look at a baseline for your carbon reporting. You've got to be able to say accurately and confidently that this is the data that I'm reporting for this year, and this is where I'm at on my baseline for next year. So providing that accurate data really puts it in. Setting your targets and your strategy, and again, this feeds into the big support that you can offer to your customers. They're on the net zero journey, probably not fully understanding where they start, what data they need to capture, what they'll be looking at. So with a solution like what we're looking at today, you can get that data, you can set the targets and the strategy very clearly with them. Monitoring the progress, again, fundamental in regards to that. You have to be able to track where you're at against your carbon reporting, and again, that comes back to clear data, accurate data, reliable data coming in. And if that's been done on the last slide that we looked at, it's manual, looking at suppliers, again, it comes up with inconsistencies around data formats of what's coming in from there. So we've looked at this, so difficulties in collecting and processing data. I think my background's as a supplier, so I know there's different formats. You've got EDI files, PDF formats, CSV, spreadsheets of Excel that are coming in. So it's about how do you bring all of that in to make sure that you can give the expertise to your customers to be able to say, we've got your data, we can report on your scope 1, we can do your carbon reporting from there in regards to it. So consistency, reliable data, again, and keep pushing the message, consistently getting that data, making sure customers have access to it and you can report on it for your customers. We know there's multiple data sources out there, we mentioned it before, so again, your challenges that you've got for your customers, how do we manage that data? How do we manage the formats that are coming in? And by having a solution that takes all of that data together, you can then report confidently to your customers around the data that's coming into the platform. So I mentioned this before, what are the potential pitfalls? And this again is the pressures that your customers are feeling in regards to the data and the net zero journey and ESG reporting. So we've mentioned the accidental greenwashing, and that literally comes down from not having accurate data. We've seen on the news, it was all over LinkedIn, companies reporting on their carbon, but not having the accurate data, which means they are getting fines in place and greenwashing. We mentioned reputation again, so this feeds into the fact that if you're in the spotlight, and we've heard it today, there's a lot more people taking focus on carbon reporting. What are them businesses doing in regards to the net zero? How are they reporting on it? So again, all of that feeds into there. There's a financial risk, which we mentioned, feeds in with the reputation and the greenwashing. If you're not actually reporting on the right data, again, there is financial risks that come into there. And national targets, in regards to the data that's coming in and what you're reporting on, if you're not reading into that, it's not feeding into the national targets and you're not reliably putting the reports in that you should be. So I guess this feeds into what you can do with your customers. So what steps can you take to improve the accuracy of the information your customers provide? So you can implement a robust and ongoing strategy. Where's the data going to come from? How are you going to use it? How are you going to format it and look at it? The use of technology, I mentioned we are not the only solution in the market, but what we are doing is leading the way in regards to accurate and reliable data. Automating the process. The big thing that we get, and a lot of experience, is that energy brokers and TPIs do not have time and the resource to be looking at this and collecting data. So by automating that process, you can get the data formats in from there. Being able to audit and use the finance, so everything that should be done should be fully auditable, so you can look at the data, you can run back audit, you can look at the conversion rates for your scope 1, 2 and 3, and everything again we can show within our platform from there. Check your work and using technology, so we work with a lot of brokers and energy TPIs at the minute. It's a constant check. What are we doing? How can we improve? What can we look at? So again, feeding into that from there. So the size of the challenge. Probably at the start of the presentation, I mentioned that there's more data than ever that we're working with. So just to give you an idea, there is 44 zettabytes of data in 2022, and that equates to that. So you can imagine your customers, you are working with data on a daily basis, different formats, and how do they manage it and how do you manage it for their customers from there. A bit of a stat here, I'm reliably informed that's 40 times more bytes of data than the number of stars in the universe. So that's again, a bit extreme, but it highlights the fact that data is in multiple formats, it's in multiple sources, it's coming from different areas, and again, how do you support your customers to make sure they can actually look at that data, take the data, make sure it's clarity, and they can use it for reporting purposes right across scope 1, 2 and 3 from there. So we mentioned before, we're not the only solution in the market, but what we do offer is a software that creates highly accuracy data. We're at 98% data sets from anything that we take in, and we can take any data logic, anything that's accurate and usable, we can take into the platform. So 100% of the data that we take in is validated. Again, doesn't matter on the format, so this feeds into the automation that we look at, PDF bills, CSVs, EDIs, directly into the platform that we would do from there. We've got industry expertise, we've been in the market for 30 plus years, so we understand obviously what's happening in the industry, scope 1, 2 and 3, and the emissions reporting. I've mentioned this before, it's easy to collate data with our software into one system. So if everything's going into one system, you're not using multiple versions, it gives you the single source of truth from there. And just a little stat, so we manage 530,000 meters and over 3.5 billion of energy spent globally. So you can see there's a lot of meters we're managing, a lot of data that's coming in, and in regards to our solution, the overarching message is we can automate the data ingestion, we can report on the carbon, and can we offer scope 1, 2 and 3 support for you and your customers.